there's any One Piece fans out there, and I don't know if I've even mentioned this, my favorite character in One Piece, not because he's the coolest or the toughest, but because he's the most sincere character and the most adorable character, is absolutely Chopper. Tony Chopper, who has just such an incredible origin arc when we meet him on Drum Island. And he was a reindeer, and then he was kind of shunned, and then he ate a devil fruit, and he kind of became like a person reindeer hybrid, and he was taken in by this doctor who found him with a bunch of bullets in his back. And the doctor was sick, and Chopper wanted to save him. And without getting into the doctor, I guess I'll explain it really quickly. I know this isn't what you signed up for, but the doctor was very enamored with pirates, or what they represent, like freedom and their lifestyle, and they do have a certain code of honor. And it's the skull and crossbones was their symbol. So Chopper, when he found out that the doctor who took him in was terminally ill with basically 10 days to live, looked through the book, saw this one mushroom with the skull and crossbones there, and associated that with the pirates, red pirate, which is something that the doctor told him was this great thing. So he goes to the place where that mushroom grows. It's incredibly dangerous. He's essentially risking his life, going through extreme hardship to try to get this mushroom to save the doctor's life. And the doctor, upon seeing Chopper come in with the mushroom, is obviously visibly has an emotional reaction, as every single one of us watching this. I know you're thinking, like, what the fuck are you talking about, Dan? We came here to listen to ranting about how AI sucks, but a little bit of heart in the mix isn't bad. Anyway, so the doctor sees Chopper, has an emotional reaction, and at the end of the story, he does wind up eating the mushroom. He's dying anyway, but he does wind up eating the mushroom, and fulfilling his dream at the same time, was to bring cherry blossoms to this snow-covered island. That's really it in a total nutshell, without spending 20 minutes breaking down Chopper's Drum Island and origin story arc. But I'm just going to show you this reel, because if I got to spend 10 minutes crying over cartoons in the morning, then all 14 of you who watch my videos probably should as well. So here we go.
ごめんね大事な本お願いになれ生きてよドクターありがとよドクターごめんね大事な本お願いになれ生きてよドクターありがとよドクターごめんね大事な本お願いになれ生きてよドクターありがとよ
That little reindeer represents the best of what people can aspire to be. Selfless, pure of spirit. And it's just so beautiful and pure that I wanted to share it. And I'm sorry if this is weird. I'll link this this reel if you want to torture yourself and actually feel something. Pretty much by a little reindeer who has been absolutely tortured, hunted, and hounded by everyone and everything he has encountered in his life. All right, let's get into some shit that you guys care about. So, in recent periods, we've had quite a few developments. One of them is, if anybody's been paying attention, there's something called the EU AI Act that came out. At first, I've known about this for a while. It's a little vague and a little broad. It breaks down all AI techs into basically one of like four categories: high risk, mid risk, low risk, no risk type of thing. And it's super vague. And I think upon reading this and understanding kind of what it says, it doesn't really do very much. The main things, and I'll link it. You can read it for yourself. I'm not going to break it down every little bit, but essentially there's two big problems with this AI Act. One, there's zero enforcement mechanism. Essentially, it's counting on corporations or entities to police themselves and self-censor themselves. So we all know how that works. In stark contrast to what we just saw, my good friend Chopper, selfless and put the needs of others before his own, we can absolutely count on basically self-interests to prioritize profits over people at every turn, and they'll do the mental kung fu and gymnastics necessary to justify these things. So an act with no enforcement mechanism is not like the best thing. Is it good that there's a conversation about this and that some sort of legislation is happening? Does this really have teeth? No, not that I can tell upon reading this. The other problem with it is that it doesn't allow change. Meaning, if the act is written today, in 2 years there's a new development, which is how these technologies go. I mean, to think that what's happening today is what's going to be happening in 2 years, 3 years, 6 months is ridiculously nonsensical. It doesn't allow for any sort of mechanism to alter it. So it's a little bit, yeah, I think they could have done better. I pretty much seems very likely to me that a few people with interests in this technology and to make money probably had something of a hand in creating this act. Feels a little more lip servicey than teeth. So more lip, no teeth. Not great. But that happened. I'll put the link below if you want to read about it. But so far, I'm not super duper excited about it. Next thing I want to mention is that, yes, another lawsuit against basically what I'm calling stable diffusion clones. Right, a lot of these AI apps, the avatar generators, things like that, they're all running off of stable diffusion. So if you remember Lensa, the AI avatar craze that came out, was this like a few months ago? Fun fact: the popularity of these like avatar generators has basically plummeted through the floor. I'm not sure if any of you have been scrolling Instagram at 5 a.m, trying not to cry, watching Chopper bring the mushroom to the doctor. I'm seeing an absolute metric butt ton of ads for these apps. Now, I don't know if that's because at one point I actually clicked on one to read the comments and to chime in with my own this is theft, yada, 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 all that jazz, the usual. And then because I made a comment on it, Instagram's algorithm assumed that I love these things and just started feeding to me. But it does coincide at the exact time that, the popularity of these things is basically through the floor. I think a lot of that actually is due to, well, it's a couple things. One, this is just the cycle of the internet. Like, flash in the pan, something it becomes cool for a second and then it's gone. Attention deficit, especially in the internet age, is like 0.0001 milliseconds. So people do the thing and then they're like, moving on, what's next? Another thing that I think really put the kibosh on how much fun people were having with this is, if you make one of these avatar, magic avatar. And you post it on Instagram because the only reason you do it is because you want to get likes, right? Like, oh, look at me, I look cool now, and I want to get a bunch of likes. But instead of getting likes, you just receive comment after comment, ranging in varying degrees of severity, from like, hey, you should be aware that these models are completely unethical that you're using here, and steal work from artists against their, without consent, which was the messages that I was telling people who I saw using this, which was actually a little bit of a silver lining because it brought the conversation to like normal people. When I say normal people, I just say people who don't have a vested interest in art community and this current situation. And it gave me an opportunity to say, hey, like, you posted this. I think you deserve to understand what's happening here. And most of them were like, whoa, I didn't know that. Like, F that. That's, yeah. And then they would stop. And a handful of people there. But if you're posting something thinking that you're just going to get a bunch of likes and you just get a ton of criticism, well, you don't really want to use that thing. So shout out to all the artists who remained vocal. Hopefully you did it in a way that wasn't aggressive. We don't condone violence or threats of violence. A normal person who has a heart, a soul, and a brain will understand what you're saying and go, oh, well, that's not right. So anyway, there's another lawsuit in the list of lawsuits against basically mostly things that are stable diffusion. But, just to recap we have the class action lawsuit that is being brought against Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, and also DeviantArt. There is the lawsuit against Stability AI by Getty Images because they scraped basically Getty Images' entire online catalog of stock photos. There is the GitHub Copilot lawsuit, and now we have another class action lawsuit against Lensa because these, and this is a little different. This isn't they're collecting everyone's artwork without consent and violating their intellectual property rights. The problem in this lawsuit is that they're collecting your biometric facial data. Basically, when you use this thing, it trains the algorithm, the model on your face in order to do what it does. And they said they weren't storing this stuff, but they're absolutely storing because data is the new gold. Why would they not store this? Like, these are people who are in the business of being in business. So we have another class action lawsuit. And my big hope in all this, without really getting into all the details of the lawsuit, is that people start to cool on these things, meaning the gold rush is starting to be understood to be basically it's like Indiana Jones when you're in the freaking mining cart and it's going towards a cliff. You think you're doing great, but then all of a sudden, tracks out ahead. You're gonna be putting yourself in just a ton of potential legal jeopardy. And I'm hoping that cools people on investing in some of these things. I know it's like, yeah, good luck with that. I mean, we see what's going on. ChatGPT, Bing, Google. There's this like AI chatbot arm race that is essentially imploding currently. We'll get to that. That's a few tabs down over here. But I'm hoping that it cools. I'm hoping that it stops people from investing and just understanding that you might want to take your time with these things. They're not really benefiting anybody. So there's really no point. Like, keep them in the research phase. Like, figure out where the path leads to these things. If the holy grail of AI, right? Because what we have now for the 5 billionth time is not AI. We have learning algorithms. That's it. Full stop. See where that leads. If the holy grail is AGI, artificial general intelligence, maybe keep it in the research phase and do it responsibly and do it right and get to your holy grail. And then at that point, it can become sentient and wipe out all the humans. And then hopefully Keanu Reeves can step in and wave his hands, and then they can cue the Rage Against the Machine music, and he can fly up in the sky and he can fight, and then we can live in that fantasy world. But until then, just keep the shit to yourselves. It's not helping anybody. And essentially, it's fraught with flaws. Moving on. So, yeah, another class action lawsuit. Great job, guys. Everybody's super into it. Another thing that you may or may not have seen, I'm pretty sure you've seen, because as of this point, this video has 14 million views. The Linkin Park Lost video was primarily done with AI. Now, this one I don't want to spend a ton of time on, but I do have some pretty strong opinions here. And luckily, I've given myself a couple days to cool down before I spoke about it, so I can kind of deliver this in a little bit more of a measured manner. First thing to say is I can show you this video. I can't play the music, but I can show you this video because they don't really own the rights to any of this. Anything generated with with learning algorithms, you can't copyright it. So I can show you whatever part of this that I want. Now, it's a mix. According to them, they had some animation done, or frames of animation done by an artist, and then they trained the model on that. Now, two things about that. One, all you did was fine tune. That's how this works. The base model for Stable Diffusion is billions of images that's trained on, and if you training it on a couple of images or whatever that you had done is only fine tuning at best. So they're trying to say, oh, we did have a traditional artist involved here. I'm honestly not buying a second of it. The second part of that is that this is just a nausea-inducing, frenetic, and incoherent mess of a video. And the most important thing here is that Chester, rest in peace, you poor tormented soul. Honestly, like, moment of silence for Chester Bennington. All respect, dude. And please, when I'm criticizing this video, understand nothing against Chester Bennington. If anything, he deserved so much better. He really deserved so much better. I mean, Linkin Park has a history of doing fantastic animations for their videos. And to see what this has devolved into, it's a little sad, and you really got to figure it all comes down to Mike Shinoda steering the bus here, who in recent times has basically a NFT shill, unapologetic, I don't know, because like a bottom dwelling, smooth brain, nothing, just a trash panda of a person. Nothing against raccoons, you guys are adorable, but he deserved better. I mean, is this really what Chester Bennington deserves? So we'll just watch a few seconds of this mess. There should be a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that says, if you suffer from seizures or prone or have epilepsy, like, do not watch this video. It's absolutely nausea inducing. The few frames where they do show Chester, he's been covered up with this like incoherent, like, it doesn't even look. So look, if you're a fan of Linkin Park, wouldn't you just love to see Chester? Actual footage. Now, I think maybe one of the reasons they didn't just show all the actual footage is that all this footage is taken from other places that you've seen already. But that shouldn't matter, right? You can be forgiven for not having new footage of someone who very unfortunately has passed away. And in all of this, it really just reeks of a cash grab. Now, listening to the song, it's actually a really good song. And apparently it was one that didn't quite make the cut from the album. It was Meteora. And And maybe it should have. It's a great song, but that just speaks to the quality of the album as a whole. But it's a great song, and I think people would have really appreciated actually seeing Chester. And I can't imagine how many millions of actual artists would have jumped at the opportunity to work on this project, probably at a reduced rate as well. So they just cut a bunch of corners, didn't want to really pay people. I'm sure a handful of people will make money. Mike Shinoda will definitely make money off of this. I guess when he's not shilling NFTs, he's using AI art to, in my humble opinion, in a way, disrespect the legacy of somebody who really was supposed to be one of his very good friends. It's a little sad, and he, look, unless you live under a rock that is under a bunch of other rocks, you're aware of the conversation that's been going on about these models. You have to know that by using these models to create this Jirek that you've created, that you're going to literally walk smack dab into this. So we're going to assume that he understands that that is what's happening. Didn't give a shit. And apparently, by all accounts and measures, that's kind of been his thing lately. We're talking about Mike Shinoda right now. What I really would have loved to see is for them to have created something that the money or the awareness of it would have gone towards benefiting people who suffer from mental health issues, right? What we know about Chester is that he struggled, right? He struggled with substance abuse, he struggled with depression, and some of the haunting lyrics, like when you listen to Linkin Park's lyrics, I mean, a lot of that comes through. Here was somebody who was really feeling things, and very unfortunately, in the end, he didn't win those battles. And this is a conversation that, especially in recent periods, has been given a little more attention, but this was an opportunity to really shine a light and potentially destigmatize for people to talk about these things, because these are very real. Like, you know, you get your arm cut off, people can see it, like, oh, you have a problem. But, you know, a lot of people's attitudes when it comes to mental illness, or an illness is a strong word, we'll say mental health issues, is that, and I, look, a lot of us have been there, whatever the cause of it is. Sometimes when you talk to people about it, they'll literally just hit you with it. Well, just fucking snap out of it. Like, yeah, you think you're the only one to have to deal with something like that? It's incredibly dismissive. And I think people need to understand that it's really not that simple. Like, people's attitudes towards depression is like, well, just be happy. And that's not how this works. I think everybody, at this point, a lot of people, younger generation, I think we understand that, especially with the younger generation, social media, the way the kind of world is right now, the world's a little ill. I think more people are understanding, but this was a great opportunity, and they just did this kind of nausea-inducing animation. I'm speculating here to say that they probably didn't want to pay the people who originally filmed or created the videos that they're using. There is a video on YouTube of a guy breaking down what all the original footage is taken from, that they applied the AI over. Just looking at a couple nuggets here, I'm sure it won't be too hard to find plenty of examples of this. Like, just anything where there's someone's face is shown. Like, is this respect? Like, look at that. That looks terrible. Like, what is this? This looks terrible. Like, what is that? And frame to frame, it will change. This is an incoherent mess. This is not is this respect? Did the other band members sign off on this? I'm pretty sure Mike Shinoda just does whatever the hell he wants. He's looking looking to make money. It's a little sad. It's a missed opportunity. And rest in peace, Chester Bennington. Rest in peace also Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, who is another incredible artist and musician who we lost in that very same year, who was also one of Chester's good friends. And they struggled with a lot of similar issues. Without getting too morose, they passed under very similar circumstances. I can't speculate if one was inspired by the other, but it's very sad and it's a loss. It's a huge creative loss to the world. Period. So missed opportunity, Mike. Do better. I am glad that on your Twitter you have been absolutely destroyed here. And justifiably so. I mean, if you read the comments here, which we're not going to do, I mean, people not happy with this. And it sucks because wouldn't you want the conversation around your passed away, apparently, supposedly one of your closest friends ever, to be above reproach? Wouldn't you want it to just be so high-minded and so incredible? But instead, this is what was produced. It's incredibly disappointing. Having said that, the song is very good. It's incredible to hear Chester's voice again. I would have liked to have seen his face, not this nonsense that they covered him up. Even if it was older footage, just having it all collected and put in one place, and then you have your animation piece done without the AI. You definitely could have animated this girl drifting down, which is a big part of the video. She's kind of falling down, which is a metaphor in a way for, mental health, depression, things like that. But you could have had that done with traditional animation and had it look so much better, so much cleaner, and then have the footage and just show us Chester again. We don't want to see this stepping all over him that you're doing. I haven't seen anybody say, and I've even read all the comments on the YouTube. For some reason, like 90% of them are in Russian, so I have no idea what those say. But very few people, if at all, are like, this is amazing. What I do read comments saying is like, it's great to hear Chester again. We miss him. Rest in peace. And at the end of the day, I'll leave it with that. Rest in peace, Chester Bennington. Your voice is missed. I wonder what other incredible things you would have done. Hey, would you still have been with us? Hats off to you, buddy. All right, moving along. Talking again about now, we're back into the realm of stable diffusion misuse. Essentially back to what my take is, that these tools, diffusion models using everybody's artwork that they scraped off the internet without their consent, is essentially, in my mind, no matter what anybody says, they say, oh, we're democratizing art. It's like, it's completely laughable. This is a tool that really enables people to work on, or to act on, some of their own worst impulses. And already we're seeing it. Like, these tools have been popularized for, what are we talking about, 6-7 months now, and only recently really people have had access to certain aspects of stable diffusion. And people are using stable diffusion to generate AI or algorithm images to scam people. I mean, let's not even talk about deepfakes. Already in the past week, every single day, I see new examples of deepfakes. There are so many and again, not even touching on child P, there are so many reasons why this stuff doesn't need to exist. And anyone who says, well, that's just art is gatekeeping, art is never something that was gatekept. Again, for the millionth time, just Google free art tutorial. You can be as specific as you want. There is 10 billion people who are giving free art tutorials. If you have a specific thing you're looking for, you can find that thing. It'll be just some random person with 10 views on their thing, but they happily took their time to create a video to teach you how to do this one thing or these 10 things or this entire thing. It's just what it is. So here we have people using, I'm assuming this is Stable Diffusion. It could very possibly be Midjourney, and they're using this to scam people, playing on their heartstrings eventually, because there was these terrible earthquakes in Turkey, an absolute fucking tragedy. I don't, this was an older article. I don't know what the death toll is up to. One thing I just do want to point out with that it has been shown that one of the reasons that the death toll is so high is that a number of years ago, Turkey passed some legislation that said all buildings needed to be brought up to code, just for very much such an instance of this. But Erdogan, who was I don't know if he was the prime minister, if he's the dictator, forgive me for not having the appropriate nomenclature there. Under his regime, it was corruption. So really things didn't get done right. So these buildings were falling so quickly. Again, this is about greed. You know, you pass legislation to do something, and then the powers that be, meaning people who can profit and make money off this thing, either grift, corruption takes place, or they undo it, and this is what you get. Now, I wasn't going to mention this, but this is a perfect tie-in to the railway disaster in Ohio this past week, because the reason that seems to have happened is because the brakes on these rail cars are essentially from the Civil War era. Yes. Let that sink in just for a hot second. And the Obama administration tried to enact regulation that would require all of these railway companies to upgrade their brakes on all of their trains to a computerized pneumatic system of brakes. Now, Civil War era brakes, computer-driven pneumatic braking system. Which one do you think is better? And I'll give you two guesses what happened with that. Millions upon millions of dollars were funneled into politics by lobbyists on behalf of the railways, and that got gutted. Trump gutted that. This isn't about Trump versus Obama. This is simply about the process of politics and how money doesn't want to spend money. They want to make profits. And they just do things that destroy what should be absolute common sense. So tragedy after tragedy recently. It seems like the only people who are really getting to the heart of this are like YouTube people. They're not talking about this on MSNBC. They're not talking about this on Fox. Everybody's using this to spin their own political and already established agenda about the other guy is bad. But really, this is a common sense thing. Let's look out for the people. This is a common sense. Regulations are not bad. Regulations are put in place to stop bad things from happening. The Industrial Revolution in the beginning was an absolute free-for-all. It was destroying people. It took people unionizing, and it was essentially a war to advocate for basic working condition safety. The 5-day work week, 8-hour days. These aren't revolutionary ideas. These are common sense things. I'm sure companies at the time were completely outraged that their ability to create unfettered profit at the expense of literal human lives was being impeded upon right here. Just absolute nonsense. So a moment of silence for so many victims in Turkey. I'm also very concerned about all of the people in Ohio whose essentially their environment that they live in is become completely polluted. We are only going to see the effects of this going forward. Like in the next 5-10 years, it's going to be like 9/11, where people who were near ground zero, a lot of them developed cancer. A lot of them developed serious respiratory issues. A lot of them they aren't alive right now. So this is going to be a similar situation. It's completely fucked up. And this all comes from human greed, which is just similar to what we're seeing, not in the physical impact it's having on people's basically ability to live, but with diffusion models, with AI, learning algorithm technology, we're affecting people's ability to earn a living. This is just an extension and a part of the, when I say our society is sick, this is the ailment, right? I don't want to put it on an ism. It's capitalism versus this ism. It's just human nature to be greedy. And I think we can do better. And that is why I started this video with Chopper. Chopper represents the best that we can be. Selflessness, putting the well-being and welfare of those that you love in front of your own, and knowing that it's the right thing to do. Chopper didn't think twice. Chopper didn't look back and say, well, maybe I shouldn't have done this because I got a little scraped up. He's just such a pure, beautiful spirit that I want to see more of that in the world. And it doesn't seem like we're seeing a lot of that. And it's sad. And I think we got to do better, guys. I'm going to completely take a left turn here. And to all of the people who say, prompting is my skill, it is my art. I am a transcendent wordsmith who strings together incredible structures of words into beautiful sentences that innately create or enable this, whatever you want to call, diffusion model, plagiaristic, nonsensical tool to bring these beautiful illustrations to life. Yeah, apparently pretty soon you guys will be completely, it just won't be a thing anymore. They're pretty much having, this is from your guy itself, by the way. This is Imad Mostak, my good friend Mosquito Baby Hands. He is saying this. Don't take it from me, Mr. Anti-AI douchebag who cries watching cartoons. Take it from your boy, the tech messiah, right here. Prompt engineering also won't be a thing, given you can have AI to dynamically reconstruct and optimize these. So enjoy it while you can. It won't be very long before you just won't be a thing anymore. And then maybe then you'll come over to our side and be like, oh my God, my art has been taken by the machine. It's a little different, but maybe then a little bit of empathy might be in order. Good times. Here's another thing I kind of want to talk about too. Look, we've seen people enter AI imagery into contests before and win. The first case was the Colorado State Fair guy who was incredibly unapologetic and represents a lot of the worst of what humanity has to offer. And recently, an image was entered into an Australian photo contest. Here's the image, and it won. Now, in the defense, before everyone goes, oh, blah, 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 I will say the person who entered this owned up immediately, refused to accept the prize money, and basically was apologetic. Okay, unlike Colorado State Fair guy, who essentially went on to say, art is dead, deal with it. He's pretty much, in my mind, he was Chris Farley entering a third grade wrestling tournament and then being like, booyah, I'm the winner. Suck it, parents. This guy, attitude, a little different. It's a problem. What's going to happen is we're just going to have AI generated categories, learning algorithms. Bad habit. AI is just easier to say, even though it is not AI. Learning algorithm categories, or TIG, text image generation categories, will need to be established, and people can enter those. I mean, ideally, these things just go away and it's absolutely not necessary. But if I'm dealing in a realistic and pragmatic world, that is what's going to have to happen going forward. So look, this is a nice image. It's got warm, it's got cool, it's got a wave. At the end of the day, you can kind of tell that something's off with the waves. There's too much information here as it diffuses a million images or 1,000 or 100 images into one image. It generally does tend to do this thing. It's just too much shit. It's like 20 pounds of shit in a 10-pound sack. But the problem with this in a photography contest is that it is derivative. It is using other people's photos to create this photo, and that's the underlying issue that a lot of these lawsuits are dealing with or trying to address. That is the big problem that we have with these diffusion models. And at least this person's credit, they came out and they said, look, we don't want the prize money. We completely fessed up to it. It is what it is. Similarly, last week, I'm a huge Destiny fan, or at least I was. I used to play an inordinate amount of Crucible with some of my buddies, and I actually was pretty good. I had a aggregate KDR of like 2.4, 2.6 with over thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds. That was my aggregate KDR. I know it doesn't sound like a big number, but it's actually a pretty good number. Okay, I'm done. I'm done humble bragging. That's pretty douchey. I apologize. But I really like this game. I used to play this game a lot. And every week they do like an art of the week on the This Week at Bungie on their Discord or whatever. They have like their own like Destiny app that I used to use. And this week or last week, a person generated something in Midjourney, entered it in, and it won. Now, again, this person actually was like, hey, I just thought it was really neat what I had made, kind of Destiny-ish. If it gets a bad response, I'll take it down. They weren't like, suck it, losers. This is my art. I am the new absolute, the tits right here. Their attitude was much better than Colorado State Fair douche nozzle. So it's hard to be upset. I think it's just worth mentioning because this is the type of thing that is starting to happen more and more. And I do appreciate that the people that had a level of self-awareness about it. Now, the judges who judged this, they probably should have been able to tell. But as far as AI hands go, I mean, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 fingers. That's a pretty big deal for AI. 1, 2, 3, maybe that's a finger, but the thumb and forefinger could be hidden there. It's kind of Destiny-ish, but this isn't a Guardian. We don't have these backpacks. Where's the sick-ass pulse rifle? I mean, it's obviously Destiny inspired, but it's not Destiny. So I don't want to really go after the person that made this. Again, it's just about a larger issue that these types of things are happening, and it kind of sucks. But I do appreciate that these people were at least self-aware. In other fun AI news, this real-time live stream SEINFELD thing that was streaming, and it got taken down because apparently the AI, which in recent period has been committing all kinds of nonsensical, I want to say faux pas, but just kind of egregious nonsense, like CHATBOTS, the Bing bot, the this bot, the fembots. Wait, right. They're literally regurgitating nonsensical kind of psychopathic shit, and people are starting to go, whoa. There's been a few examples of this, and for just at the baseline, if how dangerous it is that maybe somebody would be susceptible to this and it could influence them based on an algorithm that has no intention behind it. But at the baseline of these models, let's say you just want to use it for something benign, like there was a guy who just wanted to know when a movie was playing, when he wanted to know when Avatar 2, The Way of Water was playing. And the thing kept saying that it's not playing yet because it's currently the year 2022. And the guy tried to say, no, it's actually the year 2023. And the bot was arguing with him and basically was saying things like, I don't know how to make you understand this. You're wrong. And it got really weird and a little dark. And And that's the type of thing that can absolutely happen. So, back to my previous point, keep this shit in the shed, guys. It wasn't ready to be released. I know that they're like, well, by having the public use this thing, the training is getting much faster. Yeah, that's not remotely cutting it for me, or really should be for anyone. Put the shit back in the shed. We can wait. We don't really need this. We've got plenty of other problems to deal with. And until you've got the AI or the learning algorithm tackling climate change, being put to work by the people creating fusion, curing cancer, a little bit of responsibility. It's the Jurassic Park quote. You're so convinced on could we do this, you didn't kind of stop to think about should we do it. But the Seinfeld parody got stopped. Sorry, a little circular there. Because it started saying a bunch of like, homophobic stuff, which is one of the big problems with these learning algorithms. They're trained off the internet. The internet is the most vitriolic, vile, most biased, hateful thing. So if you're training your chatbot on this mess of bleh, what do you think? It's garbage in, garbage out. It's the age-old saying, and that's what happened here. Now they said, we're going to try to fix it, but for me, it's not the point. I don't care. I didn't watch any of this. Again, a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. I'm going to leave this one there. I feel like I've been talking a lot. There's a few more things I do want to talk about, but just for the moment, I think it's best to leave this one here. We're going to close it down with my guy. Just remember, just because this is a cartoon, we can do better. We can be selfless. Don't forget to be creative. Don't forget to use your artistic skills. Don't forget to enjoy your life. We live in a sick time, in a very sick world, but that doesn't mean that you have to be sick as well. Rest in peace, Chester Bennington. You deserve better. Rest in peace, Chris Cornell. And on that note, love you guys. Talk to you soon.
Who do you love?